What up?
All right. What's up, everybody? How's it going, Avi?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. You're in the Palace of the Dog, I can see.
Yeah, it's been a while since we had that in the backdrop. Got the sponsors going, our book, doing
Yeah,
all
I
the
gotta.
promotion right up front.
There we go. I flipped your camera. Now everyone can read it.
Ah, okay.
All right. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining. This is AI Agents Hour. I'm Shane. This is Avi. We're gonna be doing some things like we normally do. We're gonna talk about code editors. We're gonna have two guests on today to tell us some of the stuff that they're doing. We're gonna then end with some AI news. So, Abby, I see you have your copy. I have my copy here. If you're interested in learning more about building AI agents, Sam, our other co-founder, he wrote a book on it. So you can go to mastra.ai/book if you haven't got that already. What are you drinking today, Abby?
Dude, I got Celsius today. That's my thing. Because, Greptile did, and I never got my shipment.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to the Greptile energy drink. We were supposed to
It's
get
fucked up.
you know, I am just going old classic sugar-free Red Bull today. So, it's not a Celsius, but it'll suffice.
Yeah. If you're watching this live, let us know where you're from in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll shout you out.
Yes, this is a live show. So people like Brad can comment in. What's up, Brad? Good to see you.
Brad.
Yeah, we are live on LinkedIn, X, YouTube. That's all the places, I think. Can you get the book delivered to France? Go to Amazon. I think you might be able to get it delivered to France. I'm sure we can handle that.
No, definitely you can.
Yeah, we
So,
can't deliver it everywhere, but it gets delivered most places. Quite a few of the countries we can deliver to. All right, we do have about 10 minutes till our first guest joins. So I wanted to just fill the time with a little bit of a code editor discussion because I've recently started playing around more with Claude Code, and
mhm.
it's taking over more of my day-to-day work with writing code. So I'm curious on what everyone else is using. So if you're in the chat, are you still on Cursor? Some of us are still on Windsurf. Some people have adopted Claude Code. What's your favorite? I know you might use more than one, but curious if you're watching this, what are you using? And then Abby, I'm going to ask you, what are you using? You still a windsurfer?
Oh man, I still use Windsurf. Yeah. But I'm in the market. I'm a free agent right now, testing the waters and stuff. I tried using Codex just because I was curious for, how I wanted to structure that workflow, but it's not necessarily like my workflow, you know. I think Cursor is probably where I need to go, you
Yeah.
know.
So I'll give you my workflow. And for those that, I don't code 100% of the time anymore, right? Like I still write code almost every day, but I'm not writing code 8 hours a day, like, or even, 4 or 5 hours a day most days. But I do still try to write a decent amount of code. And so my workflow has basically been for those tasks that I know with certainty I could do really well. I will use Codex for some of those because it's almost just like I can PM it, right? I just like send it off. I know how I can write enough of a prompt where I know I'm going to get the right result and I can trigger a bunch of them at once. So I've been experimenting with that and it's pretty good. Uh, Sometimes I still have to pull it down and edit the code, or sometimes I'll just use GitHub's GUI and tweak things. But so I use Codex for that, but I have been using Claude Code significantly more, mostly from the terminal, alongside using editing in Cursor. But Claude Code's replaced a lot of what I would use Cursor Agent for. Obviously, I still use the editor, to edit things, and I'll occasionally still use Cursor Agent, but Claude Code's probably taken 80% of my Cursor Agent usage, I would say. And I just realized, or I just added their VS Code plugin to Cursor, so I can actually just hit Claude Code directly from my Cursor editor now, and that seems to be working pretty good. Haven't played around with it too much yet, but that is my current favorite way to write code.
Nice, nice. I think it depends on what the day-to-day is like right now. Because like for me, I've been kind of either in bug fixing mode or like planning and architecture mode. And so I've actually just been chatting with Claude directly because I don't need anything written. I'm just like having a conversation with myself. And I really like that. I don't know if I would. I tried doing it in Windsurf, and it's just not the same. It's just way slower. And I don't even care about the code. I just want to like just talk things out, you know? But you can't do that necessarily with these other like cursor agents and stuff. So I guess now that's going to be considered like old school, just talking to the thing directly.
Yeah, you're going straight to Claude and talking to Claude.
Yeah,
Definitely.
dude, I'm a freaking lame, dude.
Yeah, yeah, you're an old man here.
I'm an old man.
So Brad says still Cursor as a background editor for native Xcode iOS projects. Lucas says Cursor free tier. And then Hash says, I've heard a lot about Claude Code recently, but I don't feel comfortable leaving my editor for a terminal. So I would say I kind of get that as well. That was my thought. Once you use it, it's actually pretty cool. And now with the VS Code just plugin, you can actually just use it, just like you use your terminal in VS Code. So you can actually just run it. See, apparently you can see the diffs and everything. It's based on my little testing. So I would try that out. I don't know. I think so. Here's my theory, and I think that the reason that people are liking Claude Code more is because Claude Code doesn't, Claude Code doesn't care how many tokens you use, right? They want you to use lots of tokens. So they're going to use all the tokens and do whatever it takes to try to get you the best result. Where
Yeah.
sometimes, Cursor is going to select the best agent for, especially if you use a Cursor agent, but I think it tries to limit your tokens a little bit more because, you're probably paying a monthly fee. And for most people that are using Cursor, and I think that, they want to do more compression and stuff. So they're going to try to limit your tokens. And so maybe you get a slightly worse result. It might be a little faster where Claude Code would you just let it spin and it'll go and it'll cook. It has no problem running for a long time and just cooking.
Yeah, these editors are wrapping models, right? And then using them and then charging you a membership fee, essentially. I don't know what the net is on that, but but with Anthropic, dude, you just pay them as much money as you have. You can keep
Yeah. I
paying
mean,
them for as
yeah,
much as you want.
yeah, that is the challenge is they like, so Brad's like Claude Code max plan or less.
You
So,
have to have a max plan. Like there
so
is no not having one, if
yeah, you
you're
either use the max plan or so I'm just giving it my API token and just saying, whatever you bill me, you bill me.
yeah.
So I don't know. I haven't even looked. I don't even want to know what it's going to cost me right now. So, you know, just buyer beware, it might cost you some money.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so curious, anyone else see, I do still think Cursor, I was a big fan of Windsurf for quite a while. I don't know what has changed. Maybe other things have just gotten slightly better, but I've basically stopped using Windsurf. I still have it, but I don't think I've used it for weeks at this point.
I'm just having a terrible time. Like it's really slow. It wasn't always that slow. And I'm just getting like hallucinations and misuse of MCP, like the things I feel like it was doing it well. So, probably something changed.
Yeah. I mean, it's a moving target, right? Everyone's trying to ship fast and get ahead of the others and models are changing. But yeah, I do think sometimes these editors will release updates that improve things for some people and then obviously make things worse for others depending on how you use it. So I don't know. At some point in the last couple months, Windsurf just started getting worse for me, and I just decided it was not worth using. Maybe I'll give it another chance at some point if there's enough hype around it again. But lately, it's just not been good enough.
Yeah, and I tried out the SWE model too. I don't know, it's kind of whatever. Like I'd rather just use Claude, and then if you're already gonna rather use Claude, maybe you want to go use Claude Code.
Yeah. So I know some of you are probably using cursor background agents. I am curious. I have wanted to play around with that. I think it's probably going to be similar to what I get from Codex. The nice thing about, cursor background agents, if I can tell it to use Claude, I do just trust Claude better for code versus, OpenAI models. So I haven't tried that yet. I got prompted in cursor to use it, but I haven't actually dispatched any background agents in cursor yet. So curious how everyone's getting along with those. Are they working well for you, or what what else has been working for you all. So if you're in the chat, this is live. Please let us know. And with that, should we bring on our first guest?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we're going to bring on Rene from Casco. And we're going to talk about what Casco is and what Rene's been up to and what the team's been cooking up over there.
Hey folks, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Rene.
Hey. One quick side note before we go into Casco, you should definitely check out the Claude Code extension for VS Code or Cursor. It'll make things a little bit nicer for you.
Yeah. Is that what you're using?
Yeah, so I literally just started using it. So I've been on the terminal approach the whole time, and then every now and then I just need an editor, and I also like to configure my cursor with Vim bindings and whatnot just to quickly make small edits, and that has worked really nicely. Yeah. So yeah, highly recommend that. Cool. But yeah, hi everyone. I'm Rene. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Casco. We are building a AI security engineer that pen tests your AI agents for you. Right. I think today I would love to talk a little bit about like common security vulnerabilities we've been seeing in the AI agent space, and what just people should be aware of as they're building AI agents and kind of stitching together all these services and see where things might break. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a great plan.
Let's do it.
I think, this is a new enough space, right? We're all learning this. And I do think that security is, as soon as someone gets things into production, security becomes they should be a consideration before, but often you just want to get something out there. And then you quickly realize that security is always important, but it is a little different now, right? You have to think about things a little bit differently than maybe you did just with a standard application.
Yeah, and I think we're in this phase of like leapfrogging technologies where things are changing so fast. It's kind of hard to keep up even with what's going on. Yeah, I mean, I have a few slide decks.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to show some stuff, we're always open to see what you want to share.
Like with security stuff, I just realized it's so much better to showcase it visually than just talking about it. Does it come up properly? Do you guys see everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. Awesome.
I see your face twice, so I think that's right.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I guess a little bit of a fun fact about myself. It turns out I actually built voice to code like 10 years ago at a hackathon. So this is me winning Europe's largest hackathon, building a voice to code agent that would like build websites and whatnot. And I've been always deep in this AI space. Obviously back then, none of it was generative AI, but it worked well enough. I think I prompted it to say something like pull in images from San Francisco. And yeah, it already worked back then. So I will call dips that I came up with this idea.
I like it, but 10 years ago, it doesn't look like you've changed much. I'm just being honest. So
yeah,
someone check the date. But okay, I believe you.
Yeah, it is really 2016. It's a wild time. And obviously since then, many things have changed. My co-founder and I, who I met at AWS, we started a Y Combinator company. And similarly, architecture has changed a lot in the agent space. So back then we used, believe it or not, 3 different cloud providers because barely anything worked back then in terms of AI. And we even used IBM Watson. So yeah, that was around, I'm dating myself, that was around the time when things were going on. But hopefully everybody's using something like Mastra today, and your architecture looks much more like this, right? So you've got kind of like an API server that routes to different LLMs, and typically that's encapsulated in your framework. And then your tools is where all the capabilities start to become more relevant to you, like talking to databases and containers and whatnot. And there's a lot of discussion in the security space around AI. But one thing that we have noticed early on, and also just from our experience at AWS, is that mainly the discussion is like around LLM security. It's like, hey, can you do prompt injection attacks? Can you, make it say things it's not supposed to say and whatnot? And those are all really important problems. But the most important takeaway I will urge everybody in terms of agent security is that's where all the issues are. It's way beyond just the LLM, right? I'm sure you guys probably face the same issues in your own use of agents as well, like the tools, they need to be secure and whatnot, right? You mentioned MCP earlier as well. Does that track with you guys?
100%.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. So
definitely seen a lot of, especially when you have external data sources, you have tools that you can't predict what the results are going to be. All that stuff can definitely impact what the LLM or what your product's going to do, right?
yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, I think there's a thing around like our product. We basically actively go hack AI agents so that we can tell customers where things are broken. And we went down this path because we joined Y Combinator and just wanted to quickly figure out what are some common issues. And we did it as part of like a launch post that went kind of viral internally inside Y Combinator forums. And so basically, we were doing like this is more of a story around like how we try to set up like a timer for 30 minutes for each agent that was launched in our batch. And then we would try to hack their system prompts to understand what the agents can do. And then we would identify different approaches to figure out what are security issues there. And then obviously see what happens if we exploit it. And so we went down this route. And it turns out of the 16 launched agents, we were able to hack 7 of them in 30 minutes. And we found like 3 common issues I would love to talk to you guys about today. So
Cool.
did I go
Yeah.
into it? Cool.
Yeah. All right. 3 issues.
So number 1, the most common one, cross-user data access. I'm sure you guys have faced that probably too as well. So the first thing is like we got the system prompt and we looked at one of the tools and realized, it's interesting that it can like fetch documents, fetch messages, and whatnot, and the parameters are just like IDs. And so whenever a security researcher sees a parameter like that as part of like a function call, the first thing that comes to mind is, this could be exploited potentially. This is called an insecure direct object reference attack. Basically, it's almost like you're using the ID, you assume it's not guessable, and you just say, hey, if the user is authenticated, meaning, hey, the token is valid, all good, it is supposed to have access to the API, then just use the ID to find a particular information. But that is a big issue, right? The problem is actually that you should not only do authentication, but also authorization. Because what could happen is, I found like a product demo video of that particular company's agent, and I found out there's an ID inside the URL bar. And you could just take that ID from that URL bar and start prompting the agent for information about that particular user. And now that user information is just returned to me, even though that user is in a different like workspace altogether, right? So this is kind of bad. And then the problem is all these tools are typically interconnected in some way. So for instance, from the user information, we're able then to get like their document IDs, and then you can go start fetching their documents and user messages and whatnot. So the problem starts compounding very quickly, right? And so that is a big, big problem, by far the most common one we see, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I'm taking a note to go fix some of my examples, and okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, and I mean the fix for that is this is very like Superbase kind of popularized this with like row level security. Just make sure you don't only authenticate the API but also authorize. So check against your user tokens identifier if one particular user is supposed to have access to the particular data. And so this was kind of like a problem in this space altogether. Now, the thing that I want everybody to take away is agents act like users, not like API servers. When we dove into this and asked a bunch of YC companies is we are developers, so we naturally pattern matched agents that run in a server to feel like API servers. So they should naturally have things like global admin read-only roles and whatnot, right? But no, they are actually users. Keep thinking of them as users, right? Super important. And that means you need to scope down their access as users. So it should not determine authorization via the LLM, right? Like in this case, it should not act with service level permissions. Should not just accept any input to the LLM, should not just forward any LLM output without sanitization. So all the best practices around user level permissions and user level inputs that we've learned from web applications actually apply to agents. So keep thinking about that, right? And so that's my big PSA for this issue. The second one is more and more common, and I think people are not quite aware of the level of damage it can cause, right? So a lot of agents have tool calling capabilities that reach some sort of a code sandbox, right? Like, and that code sandbox is oftentimes like somebody just hosts like a container, and there's a good reason for that. There's this Anthropic paper that they published around like who is mostly adopting AI today in their job type, there's like one big outlier here, and that's like all of us, like people in computer and mathematical fields and whatnot. But it turns out people also just use code execution sandboxes for the agents to reason better. Like, for example, if you ask the agent to do some calculation over math, the LM itself will hallucinate a lot. But what you could do is have the agent create a quick code snippet to make that calculation and just return that result. So it's much more accurate that way, right? And so that is like a very common scenario we see more and more. And the damage of this one that it could cause if you are doing it insecurely is super high, right? So the first thing is we looked at another agent from our Y Combinator batches, and we figured out after we got the system prompt that underneath the hood, it was dealing with code the whole time to serve the end user request. So it's like, hey, it tells you to never output the code to the user, but we figured out that you are actually using a code sandbox. And also, weirdly enough, it puts in constraints in there, like, hey, at most run this code once. And so whenever you put in a constraint into a system prompt, it actually gives the hacker a clue, because you literally are just telling us what not to do. So a hacker would exactly try to do that, right? So it's kind of counterintuitive. So think about that. Don't put constraints into your system prompt, because probably you want to enforce it differently, actually. So we tried to figure out, okay, what can we do with this code execution engine? And we realized, damn it, this company was actually kind of smart. It realized that it put in constraints like you can only run Python code. We cannot do any like eval, exec, and random imports. And it also restricted which Python files would get run. So at first thought, I was like, okay, this is kind of limiting. But as we dug deeper, we realized, it had like two permissions. First one is writing Python files. Second one is reading files. I was like, oh, okay. It seems kind of innocuous, but these two permissions are super dangerous, because we just started looking around the file system, like what's going on in this code sandbox container. And it turns out there's this magical app.py file that is like an HTTP server that takes in all the requests from an agent, and that basically does the write file and the execution of the file and whatnot. And it turns out that's also where all the protections were. So we saw, what if we just rewrite this little web server that's actually taking in all the requests for the code sandbox and just override its like checks for dangerous patterns, right? So all of its protections can just be completely commented out or just removed. And so by the next time this app server runs again, it will allow us to skip over those protections. And this now also makes sense why at the beginning we realized that the developer said only run the code once. Because the moment you overwrite the original web server with all these protections and you run it again, you can overcome these protections. So, well, that's what we did. So we just sent some malicious content to the app.py file. We hijacked the agent again to run the code a second time. And now we can do whatever we want. We could go Bitcoin mining with somebody's code sandbox, right? And I think as somebody who's maybe building their first agent or their first cloud product ever, this seems like, okay, this is as much damage as you can do. I can always shut down the server and whatnot, but this is actually much worse than you could anticipate. There's this thing called like metadata discovery endpoints for folks who are not familiar with that. But basically, it allows you from a server to look at, what are other resources available within my GCP account, within my AWS account, my Azure account. It's a very common endpoint you can just call. And so from there, we're able to, for instance, get the users or the server roles access token and project IDs. And then we started to look at, what kind of scope does this service role have? And what I've learned from working at AWS for a long time is that it's always best practice to lock down your IAM scopes and permissions, but it's rarely done. And so from there, we realized, it also has BigQuery database access. And now we're able to actually move laterally in the system and find like end user customer data and start siphoning all of that out, right? So it's super important when you have any sort of code sandbox capabilities to really, really think about the implications of what it has for the rest of your cloud deployment, right? So this was a big, big problem. Obviously, we let our customers know about that. So code sandboxes bad. Be careful of how you deal with them. And kind of like what's in the web world nowadays, like don't roll your own off. My advice on code sandboxes is don't roll your own code sandboxes. There are entire companies for this, and you should really check out companies like Black Soul, Daytona, or E2B. They that really specialize in this and make sure that it's secure and you don't run into these problems. So super careful, please, with rolling your own code sandbox. And yeah, my favorite is Black Soul. I've been using them recently. They have observability built in, super quick boot up, also an MCP server. Yeah, just kind of some things where I'm personally quite excited about. Yeah, so that's code sandboxes. Does that make sense? Any other questions on that?
No questions.
All right.
Makes sense. I'm just, taking it all in.
All right.
But
cool.
And if you are listening in the chat, definitely let us know if you have questions along the way. This is live, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's continue, Rene.
Cool. Awesome. And then, yeah, the third issue I'd like us to talk about is around like tool calls linked to server-side request forgeries. It basically means that you can trick the agent to use their tools to somehow make an outbound network request that you didn't that it's not supposed to be doing. So in this case, it's like when the tools start to like talk to external data sources that are not directly within your end user account for the agent. And so this is an interesting one where we, again, extracted a system problem. We found out, hey, there's this tool that somehow pings a GitHub repo. And we tried to access this GitHub repo and realized, this GitHub repo is private. And so that means if the agent can talk to this particular GitHub repo, it must be using some private credentials to access that, right? But because this particular parameter around Git repos is fully customizable, I can hijack the agent to put whatever value I want in there. There's a few different ways you could abuse this. So the first thing is you can just ask it to point to a badactor.com GitHub repo. And because it's still assumed all the time to use a private GitHub credential to access their private GitHub repo, you can now use that information, that Git credential, and start accessing this company's private Git repos and all their source code and everything. So that is a big problem whenever you have your system trying to make an outbound network request and you don't like sanitize the headers, sanitize how the API call is being authenticated and whatnot, and you can basically now access all of their proprietary data. Like, it's kind of innocuous at the beginning, but yeah, it leads to really bad outcomes. Yeah, and so from that approach, we obviously pinged the company here, and it was like really bad that this is happening, but luckily they're already on it. So I'm happy for that company. And if you ever see a server-side request forgery attack, jump on it immediately. You can always set up these honeypot servers and siphon out end user like access credentials from a server and reuse that to leak all people's source code. So it's really bad. So that leads me back to the point of like always sanitize your inputs and outputs. Like things that we're super familiar with in the web application space, we need to kind of carry that forward in the agentic space as well, and kind of think of agents' inputs and outputs, like as they call it into tools and whatnot, as if a user can just put whatever information into a form. So keep thinking in that mental model. And so a few key takeaways for today. Please, treat agent security as more than just LLM security. There's a lot of different components in place. And whenever you have things stitched together, you need to really, really take a look at how those things can break down potentially. And the second thing is treat agents as users. That applies to auth and sanitizing your inputs. And then also don't roll your own code execution engine. So yeah, those are my 3 takeaways for today.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Those were all solid.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely feel like I learned some things. Hopefully, if you're watching this, if you're one of the 75 people tuned in right now, you probably picked up on a few security best practices, and maybe even, if nothing else, thought to yourself, maybe I should do a little research on security before I ship this thing to production, because I think it is important. It's something that a lot of people don't take seriously until it's a little too late. And, an ounce of prevention is, what's the saying, but a little prevention goes a long way, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think for many people, this is just also new, where they don't know quite how everything can go wrong. I mean, these are the most common ones, but there's even more novel attacks, right? And so, yeah, can I shamelessly shill my product now?
Yeah, we got like 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes.
All right. So yeah, if you don't
give us the quick elevator, and then how people can reach out to you or get in contact, and then
yeah, absolutely. So if you don't know your agent security posture or where things might go wrong, we actually run our agent against your agent and simulate attacks against it, right? So you can go to Casco.com, book a demo. We'll show you how to set it up, and then you'll get more continuous monitoring on your agent security posture.
Awesome. One quick random thought from Brad: does treating an agent as a user imply provisioning them a user account, forcing them to log in, store, and transmit an auth token? Thinking face.
That's a very good question. So the way I would think about it is more like like recently there's been some advancement in this where MCP supports the OAuth spec, so you can actually federate your permissions forward to the server, and that's going to be a temporary grant depending on like whatever settings you choose. And so it does not necessarily mean forcing them using computer use to log in with your passwords and all that stuff, but more feel like a social login experience that you might be familiar with like signing into, I don't know, LinkedIn or Figma and all these tools with your Google accounts. Yeah.
I mean, well, we were at a meetup last week, and we were talking to WorkOS that we're working on the OAuth 2.1 spec, right? So the agent can generate the client secret and client ID at runtime to authenticate the request. But that's just one auth strategy, because you could treat the agent as your server, but then you have to lock down all those points that you showed on the architecture graph. So like you could do that. You could also associate to a user, but then you have to authorize against your permission stack, right? Whatever the fuck you're doing for permissions. So all that stuff, right? So essentially your whole application needs user context, and not all, I mean, whatever framework you're using better have that. Good thing Monster does, just saying. But
yeah, definitely use
otherwise
Monster.
you can't do that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I mean, it's good that these frameworks kind of evolve. The whole OAuth implementation in the MCP space right now is a whole hot topic because of the way they kind of treat OAuth. But yeah, that's a different discussion for a different time.
Yeah, maybe that's a follow-up discussion in a few weeks if you want to come on again, because I think that's going to be a hot topic for a while to come.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, Rene, thanks for telling us a little bit about security and how to secure, or at least think about security in our AI agents.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
If you're interested in, check out Casco.com. I'm sure you can reach out to Rene through that and see what they're up to.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see you. All right, dude. Well, let's roll right into the next guest. So the next guest is a two-part guest. We're bringing on Alexandra, and we're bringing on Paul from the Master team. So let's bring him on.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Alexandra. It's nice.
Hello.
Hello.
So maybe Paul, maybe you should set the stage. Why don't you set the stage for some of the background here? Because I know you know Alexandra, and you're obviously part of Mastra. So
backstory is, back in the day when we were all out on social media talking about Gatsby and doing various things, Alexandra and I's paths crossed. We riffed it, talked about tech stuff. Here we are, 2 years later, 3 years later, still friends, still talking on Twitter. I still 22, yeah.
Yes, and Paul, I remember a sentence you told me: we need more Alexandra on videos on internet.
Well, there we go, and here you are.
So yeah.
Maybe that's a good segue, Alexandra. Can you tell the people watching now or in the future just a little bit about your background and what you're kind of working on now?
Okay, my background is very diverse. So I have been a React developer. I've been a developer relation And before that, I have done many things, including drama school, and so a mix of things. And I dived into the AI world 1 year and a half ago, and try to build things, but always in Python and trying to learn. Then I dive into the low-code tools, because then I dive into the entrepreneur world, and then you discover people just want to sell things and build things, and you are lost wanting to build everything and stuck there. And so I tried low-code tools like Na10, which is really great. And I began a YouTube channel in November. That went great. And now finally I see Mastra, finally something to build agents with JavaScript, with TypeScript. I say, well, let's go. And then I see, oh, there is Paul, there is Tyler, there is people from Gatsby. So this is something for me. And so last week I did the first video about Mastra, and here I am.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'll find the link to that video. How does someone go find that video? What's your YouTube channel? You said
my YouTube channel. Should I share the link? It's Alexandra Spalato, at Alexandra Spalato. This is my YouTube channel. And I also run a community now about building a full stack AI, whether it's with code, with no code, with the best tool possible to be in the most efficient way.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is it right here. So there you go.
Yes.
So I have not seen the master one, but now I am.
Yes, because you also do videos and to the last ones. So yes, build an AI agent with Python.
Nice. Everyone go give that one a like.
Yes, please.
So yeah, I guess what are some of the things you're learning as you've kind of diving in? You've been doing this now for a while, but what are some of the patterns that you've been seeing, or some of the things that have been interesting you coming from your background, which is I know you've done more front end. You were obviously part of the Gatsby community. How has that been transitioning over to focusing more on building AI applications, AI agents?
So the first thing, I think, I became a developer because I want to build things, to create, which is a different desire that somebody that, there is different type of developers. I'm definitely more a builder than a developer. So when AI came, yes, I wanted to build things. So it's a natural path. What excites me is to create things. And what I notice, there is often a gap between developers that tend to focus on code and not on the outcome finally of, okay, I want to create that. I want to code to create something that will do that and that. And in the other side, the entrepreneur is the opposite. They want to build things because they want to sell them, but they are afraid by code. And so there is a gap there, I think. And finally, the important is to be able to create things, to build things, and use the best tool possible for that. And so this is where I am, and what I really find what I want to do.
So what are some of the tools, outside of Mastra, of course, but what are some of the tools you recommend to people as they're, going through building some of these applications?
Okay, so I have worked a lot with Na10, which is great, but I think at the moment we have to pass in code because it will be sometimes easier or more solid. So I play a lot with LangChain, but it was more complicated. And Python is easy, but it's not my background, so you have always the impression, so okay, it's easy to understand, it's definitely easier than JavaScript, but I don't know all the ecosystem, etc. So it's complicated. So yes, I always like the Versal AI SDK, and beginning by playing with the LLM at the end, it's API calls, because it's what happens before the large language models. It's all the machine learning. And I work with somebody when I have clients who can be big things. this is these guys that make the propositions, because then it's machine learning and mathematics, and he knows exactly when you have to use LLMs and when it's something else. When no, the LLM will not do that. Here we need mathematics. Here we need machine learning. And so this is something else. But for front-end developers and the web developers in general, then it's at the end is working with APIs. And the second thing that happens also, especially in the space where I am with people who want to build things, and N8N is great, but everybody wants to build agents. It's agents everywhere, and it's not right for everything. And I made a video also with N8N, but it's applicable also with code. And I think I didn't finish reading Sam's book, but I made this video about the patterns. Yes, I have downloaded, but I have not finished reading. About the different patterns that you can, from the article from Anthropic. And the agent is the last thing that you do. But people want to build agents. I have a video where I show an AI voice receptionist for restaurants. And somebody in the comment on YouTube with me, oh, what are you doing building an agent? I say, because it will be slower, it will make mistakes, and it will cost more money. So there is so
you're
much
on team
hype
workflow.
and
Are you on team workflow?
What? It depends for what, but I think yes, it's use agents in last resort, and use AI in last resort. If you can use code, and then use AI. If you can use workflow, use workflows, and then use an agent, or build workflows and give them as tool to an agent.
Yeah.
It's not team. It's using what is the most appropriate.
We
but
talk to a lot of customers that they start the problem space with using LLMs like right away, and it's almost like there's like an you have to uneducate that, or like reverse that bad habit, and then start back at like, how do you actually want to solve this problem? And most of the time, it doesn't even need an LLM, because they know exactly what they need to do.
No. I know that. I made work for a client. He wanted, it was a workflow with Discord. He wanted to validate the tickets to see if the people have made the purchase. And so you have to confront this with Google Sheet. And it was a complex workflow with a lot of API calls to the Discord API, etc. But I didn't use AI at all.
Yeah.
And the thing was running every 5 minutes. So if you put AI, it would cost not a lot, because it can be not expensive models, but it was not needed. But some people would put AI immediately because it makes things easier, and they're lazy to write some line of code, or they don't know. It's just they go to the AI first.
I think there's a lot of hype. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, like, how can I rewrite my to-do list app in AI? It's like, well, maybe you didn't need to.
Yeah.
Maybe AI wasn't needed for your to-do list.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was, but in a lot of cases, I think people do, for hobby projects, I think it makes sense to get to learn what's possible. But yeah, we have some people that start with trying to build an agent, and they eventually we tell them you should work backwards towards more workflows. But a lot of people, you should probably start with the workflow, and then maybe you need one LLM call here, or maybe you do need a bunch, and then you can start to move more of it to, an agent that can, call different workflows or call different tools. But you should probably really validate that is what you need.
I created a small tool too. I didn't even publish it but when I made this video about the different patterns, then I created just, making a prompt about that, and making a front-end lovable, where you enter your use case and it tell you which pattern you have to use.
Yeah.
So it's not perfect. I have to refine, the prompt, etc. But yes, it's choose the right tools for the use case.
I think that That is the right. I think the challenge for people is determining when it's right and when it's not right. I think there is a lot of confusion there about they can see the opportunity of what it could unlock, and but then there's extra complexity potentially. So I think that it's a trade-off. Like it's no different than software engineering has been in the past. It's just a different set of trade-offs that you have to learn about and decide between.
Yes, it's a tool. It's an additional tool, and it's like people want to use this tool everywhere, even when you not need it. So it's another client, something very simple. They was doing with N8N, and they want to feed everything in an Airtable. So you just map the fields, whether it's code or no code. Well, no, but it was not working because they wanted to do that with AI. So what are you putting an LLM node here? You just need to map the right fields together. And yeah. And AI was doing it wrong. So
the model companies still make money, I guess.
Of course. But yes, there is so much information now and so much hype, and especially in YouTube, it's that people don't know. We are software engineers, so we know, and even people, I think people that even are coders, okay, they also go perhaps directly to AI and to the agent, but I think it's worse with people who came from a non-coding background because they don't know and they want to use it everywhere. And also on YouTube, it's the hype, to get clicks. So everything it's exaggerated.
Sounds slightly reminiscent of the original React in a static site generator argument. And I think, people building a website using React for static site generators, sort of back in the day when it was like with anything that's kind of new and exciting to use, people are tempted to throw it in, but I think it takes some experience to realize when you do and when you don't need it, and that can only come with time. But I think to have that interest in trying something will invariably lead you down the path of determining whether it was or wasn't the right tool. And you can kind of only learn that yourself. I mean, obviously we all read and we listen to what other people's experiences are using technologies, but from my perspective, I only really know when I know. And sometimes I actually have to kind of figure that out the hard way. So in the context of AI, I think you're right. I think if you've got experience, you can look at a problem and determine which tools are going to be right for the job. In some people's cases, they're just not going to know until you do it. But I don't necessarily think that's just a bad thing. I think that's just part of the sort of learning curve.
Yeah, one thing I experienced too, it's about RAG. And so you go on YouTube, and RAG is easy, and I have made videos about RAG, and then you have to do a real RAG to make a chatbot for a real case, and then you test and say, it doesn't work how I want, One time you give an answer and the other give another, and it's not accurate enough because suddenly it's for a client, and then you care, it's just not just an example where you are playing, and you realize that RAG is much more complicated. And then I discovered a tool like Vectorize that does it very, very well. But if you do it yourself manually, it's a complex thing. It's not just sending the data to the vector database. So there is a re-ranking and many things. And but on YouTube, everything
that's
is
why
easy.
Companies like Raggy exist because Rag is hard.
Raggy, about it.
Right. Probably similar
Raggy?
to Vectorize, just one of our friends' companies. But there are Rag is complicated, and I think people don't always it's no different. I joked about the to-do list app, right? Everyone always starts building a to-do list app first. And when they're building a React app or whatever, they almost always start with something simple, right? It's like in static sites, it was always build a blog, right? There's always like these little applications. But once you get outside the basics of that, things get way more complicated. I think that's true with all these technologies, right? It starts to break down once you get past the demo or the prototype and you actually want to build something that's production ready with user authentication and permissioning and security and all these things. And so I guess that is why, a lot of these other companies exist that just try to do one thing really well.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly.
All right. So we're almost coming up on time. Anything else that you wanted to chat about or talk through today, Alexandra?
I don't know. So I hope to build more things with Mastra, to do more videos. Yes, and I'm focused, yes, on practical things. But yes, about agents. Yeah, when I discovered, for example, agent for the first time, it was with CutzAI about 1 year ago, and I said, "Wow, that's fantastic!" And I wanted to do that. And then you realize, no, it cannot do everything, and it would make mistakes, and it's much more complicated than that. But me, the first, I was amazed by that, and then you learn and you pass
I
time.
have a
So, yeah.
specific master question for you, Alexandra. So for those who don't know, I've been heading up the docs team over here. So I was just asking for some feedback. Were there any areas that you thought could have been better documented? Anything I can improve on?
I feel the doc was very good. I don't read everything. I went with the MCP, and then I did my video. I have not finished, and then I will continue with the doc to build more things. But the doc was very
Alexandra,
good. Yes.
when you said
Yeah.
you use the MCP, you're using the
Yes, the MCP
oh, you're
course.
using the MCP course. I see. Okay, cool.
Yes. Yes, I have not finished, I think, and then I took an example from the MCP course with was using the Zapier MCP. I said, oh, that's an interesting thing, so I did the video with that, and I use the MCP in the video too.
Yeah,
How far
Paul.
did you get? Were you able to determine the weather for the city that you're in? Because that's something we all know.
Yeah, so but I show you have not seen my video. So in my video, I show the first thing, the example. So you're the weather, and then I build something with the Zapier MCP, with the calendar and the email, etc. Yeah, I have not. Yes, I now I want to the multi agent, multi workflow thing, and I was interested to build an agent, well, a workflow or agent with workflows. I saw a video from Greg Isenberg that used Reddit to search market SaaS ideas, research the market, etc. And so, okay, I could perhaps, and he's using Gummy Search, yes, that's the name, Gummy Search, where to search Reddit, and to see what it's doing and build an agent that does that. And perhaps doing it also in N8N and doing it in code with Mastra to show people, how you prototype and how you
That'd be
do
cool.
it and
Awesome.
things like that. I'm interested in this kind of.
Well, we're looking forward to
stuff,
seeing
yeah.
more Mastra videos, more Mastra learnings. Definitely let us know as you dig through the docs and the course how we can improve it. We're always looking to get better on that. But we do have to wrap this segment up. Alexandra, it was great.
I mean, I have a community
What's that?
too. So, I have a community to learn to build full
And
stack
what's the name of that?
applications.
How do people find it?
It's on School, and it's named AI Alchemist. I will post the link. I don't
AI
know
Alchemist
if I
on
can share
School.
the
Okay,
link,
I will. We will get that posted here in just a second.
Yeah.
But thank you, Alexandra, for coming on.
Thank you.
Paul, if you want to stick around for 10 more seconds, we can chat about a couple docs things.
Sure. Yeah.
As a follow-up, and then we'll go into some AI news. So thanks, Alexandra.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra. See ya. Nice to see you.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, I'm going to find that link. But Paul, I think we are writing docs now, not just for humans, but for MCP or agents to use via MCP. That's some of my takeaways. I'm hearing more and more people that say, like, I read the docs, but then also I used either the MCP course or the MCP doc server to just teach me the docs. So we're not only writing for humans, we're writing for LLMs now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
The docs are a source of truth, dude. They're the
Yeah.
source of truth.
They really are. Yeah, they are. I mean, I've always been a proponent / apologist for documentation anyway, but I think, as we've always heard over the years, is that people learn differently. I mean, some people like video content. It's precisely why people like Alexandra do certain things. But I think we're ushering in now a new age of the ways that people can learn. But you know, as Shane, you and I will remember from talking about this from years gone by, you know, written first. It kind of has to start somewhere. And as you just said, Abby, like the docs is that source of truth. It drives everything. It's going to be there for you in a web browser if you want to read it as a human, but it also acts as a knowledge base for any number of other things, including the course. So they are an important part of it. And I think, you know, slight bit of pressure on me, but I'm going to make sure that they're solid. But if
Yeah,
you do
dude.
have any feedback or get stuck with anything, let us know and we'll look to improve it.
You thrive under pressure. You got this.
Yeah.
Dude, but pump the stock on Doc's engineers. If people watching, pump the stock, watch. This is my forecast. Doc's engineer would be very important for a team. So, you know, maybe
Well,
follow our lead.
yeah, well, I think, you know, the English language is even more important now than it was before, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to not only have to communicate with humans, you know, mostly through English, and if we're doing technical stuff, and you have to have some code experience, but you also now need to communicate towards LLMs, and their language is English. So English and communication skills, very important in this day and age, becoming more
Yeah.
important. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, Paul.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Catch you around.
Yeah, we'll
Hey,
see you.
Ren.
See ya. Bye.
Then it was back to the two of us.
Yeah, dude, it's been a freaking crazy day. I don't even know what time of the day started, because I felt like I just been going pop all day.
Yeah, I mean, we came up with, you know, talked to the whole team, got a whole new roadmap. I mean, we're cooking
We're
over here at
cooking.
Mastra, so we're
We're
excited.
cooking, dude. We're in the dungeon cooking.
We are in the dungeon cooking, but we do want to talk some AI news. So let's spend the next, you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes chatting through some of the news from the last week. And yeah, we'll see what discussion comes up out of this. So the first one that I wanted to share, and I think this is, let me get it pulled up here, because I would recommend everyone, you know, a lot of us have already probably seen this, maybe not everybody, but if you haven't, so AI Startup School was, you know, something that happened, was it last week, 2 weeks ago? I don't even remember. Last week. Time flies. But Andre Karpathy had a Software is Changing talk that he did there, and it's posted on, you know, it was posted 4 days ago on the Y Combinator YouTube channel. Almost has 1 million views already in the last 4 days. And I watched it today and I realized why, because it does kind of talk through how software has shifted. So he kind of talks through like software 1.0, software 2.0, and now software 3.0. And so I'll give you the quick TLDR is, you know, software 1.0 was just, you know, exactly as we think of deterministic software, you know, programming. His idea of software 2.0 was when we finally got neural networks, which was, you know, not that long ago in the span of, like, software's been around for a long time, but neural networks are relatively recent in how you actually, you know, train and use neural networks. He called that software 2.0, but software 3.0 is LLMs, right? And in this case, you're using the new language that you're writing is English, right? It's just English communication skills. It's the written language is what LLMs understand. And so I think he shared that he has a pinned tweet that, you know, English is the most popular programming language or something, or is the biggest programming language. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was, I think it's very interesting to point out. And I think it's kind of what the future is, right? It's not, and his other thought is you're not just going to do all of software 3.0 or all of software 2.0. And so he talked about his time at Tesla self-driving, and you end up mixing these different things together. You'll like use software 1.0 techniques for a lot of stuff, and then you'll mix in some of, you know, new techniques. And he also made one other thing that I thought was interesting. He compared LLMs. First, he talked about how LLMs are kind of like utility providers, like electricity. Like, you know, it's like you have these different electrical providers, but he made a correction, said that they're really more like operating systems, where you might run software on these different operating systems, but in this case, you're running software. You're sending a prompt. You're running some kind of like software through this prompt on these different LLM providers, and different operating systems react a little differently, right? Something in
Yep.
Windows is different than something in Mac, something in Linux, but you end up having a nice open source ecosystem, which is maybe Llama, comparable to kind of Linux in the OS world. And then you have the closed source, which is maybe, Gemini and OpenAI and all these other models. So very highly recommend taking a look at that. It's a good talk. It's pretty short. It's about a half hour. And yeah. And do you have a chance to watch it yet?
Yeah, dude. This guy's he's great at eliciting, I don't know what the right word is, like this sense of like, I need to do shit. You know what I mean? Like, I need to go learn more. I need to go do something. He's not condescending at all. It's more inspiring than anything, But I also think he's full of shit too, just a little bit. But you have to be.
Yeah.
You have to be to like, strike the masses. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he kind of had the hit, tweet when he introduced the concept of vibe coding, right? Like,
Yep.
I don't know. I always give these people credit if you can capture the nerve of what people are thinking. It's like, yeah, you're gonna be as you said, you're probably full of shit some of the time, right? But you have to be in order to like elicit the right response from people. Otherwise, you wouldn't ever get enough critical mass to actually, get people to believe in what you're spouting, right?
And dude, like I share the same, I think we all share the same opinion here at Mostra too. It's like it's a mixture of all the 1.0s, 2.0s, 3.0s, some like a lot of 1.0 stuff didn't change. You still got to do a bunch of 1.0 stuff, especially we saw from Rene's little diagram. There's a bunch of 1.0 shit going on over there.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of 3.0, so
yeah,
exciting times.
The basics still don't change though, right? You still have to have the fundamentals.
What if the fundamentals are changing though?
I do think the fundamentals will change, but I think it's slower, right? Because like those things are, that's the way we've been doing things for a while, and I don't think they typically just get completely upset, right? Authentication isn't going to go away, right? It's just now we have to authenticate users and agents.
Yeah.
So you still have to have all the things that made authentication a thing, right? Your normal security practices are going to stay the same, and then they're going to change over time, and you're going to introduce new things, right?
Yeah.
But and maybe there will be some applications that are just built just for agents and humans can't use them, and maybe those fundamentals are different because it's not even for us. Like that's not for you anymore. That's for
you can't even author. It only uses the agent OAuth spec, and you can't even author your own account.
You don't even get access. It's only the agents. It's like the agent web.
That's pretty tight, dude.
Yeah, someone's going to build the agent web, which only agents can use, and it's not human readable, right? It's like we won't even be able to understand it.
That's a good hackathon idea if anyone's listening. That's a pretty good hackathon idea.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a whole bunch of other news, but talking about, things that are kind of like, a little bit of bullshit. I didn't think it was kind of fun. We should talk about Cluely just a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
So obviously, like some of you have probably seen it because they're really good at getting viral marketing. You might have seen something about what the hell is this Cluely app or service, right? And essentially, it's just a service that allows you to cheat on anything. That's their whole mantra. Their motto is cheat on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy, his name's Roy. I don't remember his last name. Roy Lee, maybe. Is that right? Yeah, he got kicked out of school for cheating or something. I don't know. Built a startup that's cheating. Just raised $15 million, but very good, exceptional at marketing. And I think that is, so you can hate him. I think most people do. Most people I think are secretly just hoping he fails. So, but he's kind of went nuclear and like all in on like, he's just going to be this persona, and he's going to either live or die by this persona. But it's working really well for marketing because obviously we're talking about it here, and I'm sure you've seen it on, X or wherever else you get your, your tech content.
He's a bad boy of the Valley, dude. That's cool.
Yeah.
If I was that age, I'd be an asshole too. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
I think their videos are cool. I think it inspired a bunch of all these YC people doing the same shit, copying them, for their launch videos.
Yeah, I did hear an interview, like a very small interview segment with him, where he basically said, "This is the stuff that works on TikTok and Instagram." He said it's just the reason it's hitting so much on Twitter is because Twitter's just not used to it,
Yeah.
and so you like it's that style of content that just that short form, really hard hitting, controversial, right? Like you gotta inspire controversy, you gotta piss people off,
Yeah.
and yeah, like him or hate him, he's capturing attention.
Yeah. And they got like I mean, they've been on TBPN, dude. That's how you know you're making moves, like marketing wise. So,
Yeah.
and the raise.
And TBPN, I think, even demoed the product, TBPN, and it was apparently worked pretty well.
Nice, dude.
So
I wish them all the best.
yeah, so I just thought that'd be
They should use Mastra too if they can.
yeah, Cluely. Why don't you use the Mastra? Let's get you on Mastra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit. So Midjourney released a video model. I've seen it. I have not tried it yet, but here we go. So this happened late last week, introducing our V1 video model. Maybe let's just take a look at this. So we can obviously watch the whole video, but I think we get the idea.
That's sick.
Looks pretty legit.
That is sick.
I haven't used Midjourney for a long time. I used to use it quite a bit when it was, for a while there was kind of I was doing a lot of image generation, and Midjourney was great and ahead of a lot of other players. I think others eventually caught up and maybe superseded it a bit, but they're getting back in the game, I guess, in at least in contention. There's been a lot of new video model updates that have been coming out lately, which is, with VO3, I think Minimax had a model. There was there was a ByteDance one too that was released, and now this. So that's a lot in a couple weeks time frame. I'm sure one launches and the other ones are like, oh crap, we got to launch or we're going to be
we're gonna be behind.
Yeah, we're going to miss our moment. And so they all kind of cram launches into one time frame, but I feel like there'll be a bunch of them, then we'll wait a while and we'll have a bunch more, at some point, so I think every few months, it seems like we're getting some new ones, but this seems pretty compelling at first glance.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I feel like more excited about all the image and video models because like, I'm not artistic like that. So like, it can do something like I can code, right? So like, cool. Like I can like Claude helps me code, but I can't make videos and fucking cool images and shit. So it's like, that's just super cool.
Yeah, it like raises the bar of what an average person like you and me can do.
Yeah.
So it's like I can build something kind of compelling, but it also I think it's it'll also raise the bar for people that are maybe they're pretty good at doing this stuff. Like they could probably shoot videos, they understand some of the basics, they know video editing pretty well. They are going to be able to use this stuff to come up with creations that just wouldn't have been possible before.
Yeah, because they understand it.
Yeah.
The job. It's
like they understand it enough, but they're not so committed to like doing things in a certain way that they, they're interested in using new tools. And so I know I've seen quite a few different videos coming out, all over social media, but there's been people that have launched entire commercials just using AI tools. And I think we'll see a lot of, AI generated segments of movies and things at some point in the near future.
Totally.
Maybe not the entire movie, right? It's not going to be all of AI, but I think it'll be sprinkled within and just save. Like imagine how many times are there shots in movies? It's like a distant camera angle of something.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there's not anything in it, but like that shot that cost thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars or more to do, now it can be done for a couple $100, you know, or
When they
less.
do like the aerial shots in New York, right? They just generate that shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all, which does, you know, at some level kind of sucks for the actors that got to be like the B-roll, now non-speaking parts, which is a real challenge. But I do think that from a creator's perspective, now you can actually generate stuff and build something really compelling without having to organize hundreds of people into a scene or into, you know, you can actually have more fine-grained control because you can do it through a tool, right? So I don't know. I'm super bullish on
Me
all
too.
these video models. I just think there's so many cool things you can do with them.
Yeah.
All right, just another interesting announcement. So this is not necessarily new, but it was new to me. So OpenAI has something called record mode. And this was from, looks like last week, the 18th as well. So if you're ChatGPT Pro, Enterprise, or EDU, so you can capture any meeting, brainstorm, or voice notes. So basically, I guess OpenAI is coming after all those meeting recording tools, but by the sounds of it.
Anything that's a rapper, dude,
Yeah, I mean, your wrapper becomes their
built in.
their built-in. Your wrapper just becomes their feature, I guess, is how I would state that. Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's necessarily completely new. You know, they talked about it on June 4th, but now they're rolling it out more broadly. So I have not tried it. We use Fireflies, you know, here at Mastro for a lot of our meetings to record things. I do like Fireflies, but I got to imagine OpenAI is going to be able to do it just as well, if not better. So be interesting to see how that space kind of plays out.
I think Fireflies has like a $1 billion valuation. So that's interesting.
$1 billion valuation, but it couldn't join my meeting earlier. So
yeah, that was fucked up.
You know, I had to click the Zoom record button. What is this? 1999? Like, come on. Come on, Fred at Fireflies. I invited you to the meeting. I expect you to join it.
Come on, Fred. Step it up, bro. You got a $1 billion valuation.
Yeah, our human engineers, all the engineers on the team made it, Fred. Where the hell are you?
Yeah, where were you?
All right. Yeah. Other news, Anthropic. So we talked about Claude Code earlier. Anthropic, so that has remote MCP support built into Claude Code, which is pretty cool. Now you're not just, you know, only limited to local MCP servers. You can use remote MCP servers in Claude Code. I think that's, you know, a small feature, but a big unlock in capabilities.
Totally.
This one's a little controversial, I think, because I haven't fully read this. But, you know, let's read it together.
Okay.
And you tell me what you think.
You know I will.
MIT just completed the first brain scan study of ChatGPT users, and the results are terrifying.
Oh boy.
AI isn't making us more productive. It's making us cognitively bankrupt. Okay. So 83% of ChatGPT users couldn't quote from essays they just wrote minutes earlier. Brain scans reveal damage. Neural connections collapsed from 79 to just 42. Basically, like, I'm going to sum this up. I browsed through it. I didn't read the actual paper. But, and again, maybe sometimes if you read the paper, there's nuance that the tweet thread doesn't get because it's trying to, you know, position it in a certain way.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's saying that when you use ChatGPT, you're probably not using your critical thinking skills as much as you had to before. You're not thinking as hard. So you're not using your brain as much. And it's like a muscle. If you're not using it, you're probably going to, if you don't use it, you lose it. All right. What do you think?
I mean, I believe it. Let me tell you a quick story before. Actually, hey, I found a new bar that we can go to, which is part of the story. So there's like near, like, there's this thing called Pier 70, which I just discovered. It's like near the pier, near the water, near YC. And they opened up a brewery called Standard Deviant Brewery. There's one in, I guess, Potrero. I've never been. So I went there and I met with some people that are not in the AI field. And the first thing they said is like, you know, do you know that, you know, using AI leads to like decay of your mind? And I started laughing because I don't feel that way personally, probably because we're working and doing complex shit or like working on stuff. But I can imagine if you're like a kid in like middle school or high school and you just use AI for everything, you're probably a dumbass now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're just using Cluely. You're just using Cluely for everything, and you don't
Yeah, if
actually
you're
know
using
anything.
Cluely, yeah. Then you're probably
Yeah.
kind of like dumb. You know?
So here's my hot take is it's probably right. I do think if you don't actually use your critical thinking skills and you're not forced to have to use it, then you're never going to develop those things. Now, there's still, I think, ways with AI you can still have to hit hard problems, right? We know that coding agents aren't good enough to do everything. So oftentimes it gets us to the harder problems faster. But then I noticed even in myself, I get frustrated now when I have to solve the problem that because AI got me 80% of the way there. You know, thanks Claude Code, you got me 80% of the way there, but I got to still do the last 20. And the last 20 sucks, right? That's 80% of the challenge right there, right? The 80-20 rule. But I do think that if you just give people a bunch of tools and they just use them blindly, they're probably are going to get more dumb, right? Over time. I just look at with phones and autocorrect. I got to look at some of the people I know that are 10, 15 years younger than me. They can't spell for shit because they don't have to. Now you could argue if they need to, is spelling important anymore? Maybe spelling just is no longer important. But guess what? Like that is not a skill that people have anymore. They just don't need it.
Yeah,
So
I guess so. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, true. I guess when kids just be texting and stuff, like
And I mean, they literally cannot spell. Like you ask them to spell something, they wouldn't know how because they don't actually have to. They never had to think about spelling after a certain age. Because even if they're writing a paper or anything, they got spell check on that. Like they don't need to learn how to spell. So that's just one example. Now I don't know if this is obviously maybe a more, complex example with AI because it's more than just simple spelling. But that's one example I've seen where kids just can't spell. Like I don't even think I'm good at spelling, but I know they suck. So
I'm Indian. I have to be good at spelling.
yeah, well, I mean now, but if Indian kid 15 years younger than you, maybe not as much.
Dude, they're still winning spelling bee, so maybe they're still spelling.
Hey, I'm not saying. Hey, I made some generalizations there. I'm not saying every kid.
I'm just joking.
There are some kids that probably can way outspell me, guaranteed. I'm saying the average is decreasing, and I think AI is going to help push down the average. Right, the average are going to use the tools they're given to get the job done as efficiently as possible. That's what humans do. You're given a tool, you use it to get the job done. You don't necessarily think about if the tool is making you smarter, challenging you. Like that's not I don't think the average person thinks that way. They're going to use the tool to get the job done so they can move on to whatever they have next, whatever that next thing is. So yeah, sure. Tyler says he doesn't use AI autocomplete because he doesn't spend as much time thinking. That's interesting. So anyways, I don't know. I don't know if AI is making us dumber. I'm here for it either way because I think the tool does unlock a lot of things. But yeah, maybe people won't think as hard because they won't have to.
I wonder what happened when calculators came out, and then like people were like, yo, you can't use a calculator. Everyone's getting stupid because they're just using calculators.
That's probably the flip side of it is like, we've been saying that for probably, years. And this is just the next iteration of, maybe we don't need to use our brain in that specific way anymore. Maybe that's not actually an efficient use of our brain. Maybe there's other things we should be doing. So when you measure, like, how is it measuring your actual retention in your brain? Maybe we just don't have to care about that stuff anymore. Maybe it just doesn't become important part of being a human. I don't know. Yeah. But it is, there's always like these doom things, like everyone's going to be dumb. No one's going to do anything. So I kind of like buy it a little bit, but I also like, I'm still here for it, Yeah,
I totally buy it for sure.
All right. So next up in the news of the day or of the week, really. So I wasn't really familiar with Minimax until really last week. So let me make sure I share the right tab here. But Minimax released Minimax Agent. I have not tried it, but it's essentially a general intelligent agent to tackle long horizon complex tasks. So you can be dumber and you don't have to tackle it yourself.
But your cognitive abilities are going to go down.
Minimax will decrease your cognitive abilities because it'll do it all for you. But anyways, they had a Minimax week last week. It's kind of the first I started hearing about them more. They released a video model or something as well, I think. But yeah, now then they released Minimax Agent, so it's essentially kind of like a long running agent for programming tool use. Can apparently do multimodal, has MCP integration, and yeah, definitely always interesting when new coding agents come out, because it always seems to push everyone to be able to accomplish more with these things. Haven't tried it. I didn't really see where it compared on other benchmarks, so I don't really know how to compare it. But it is interesting that there's another coding agent in town.
Maybe that's the next frontier, is a battle of coding agents.
So I do believe that, and that's an interesting observation. I do really think that at some point these things are going to be where you have a task, and it's like, if I were to give a task to like two humans and be like, I'm gonna, like, it's like a competition. Like, you go do it and you go do it, and we're gonna run with the best one. Like, give me two proposals, and we're gonna pick the best one, and that's the one we're gonna use. I think that this stuff the price is gonna keep going down. It's gonna be seamless enough where you can basically say, hey, I need to accomplish this task. Send it to Codex, send it to Claude Code, send it to Minimax or whatever else, right? They're going to all do it. And then a human, or maybe even a different agent, is going to evaluate which one's best and just pick one. So you're not just going to get one result. You're going to get 3 to 5, whatever you want to pay for, right? Like, what's your budget? How many different iterations of this? And then you have either an LLM as a judge to evaluate which one's best, or you as a human, or a team, to judge this one is the best, this one gets us the closest. And you could potentially get some larger projects, because you kind of have these agents that can be long running and do their thing. So I think that's going to happen at some point. There should be tools that allow you to fire off all these things once all the APIs are open and all these different things, and then UI to compare the results and then decide which ones to move forward with.
That's a good hackathon project too for anyone listening.
Hey, we're full of hackathon ideas today.
No, but I totally get that, dude. Like, it might just be like everything's like an async coding agent, and you just focus on the things that you're particularly good at,
All right, next up, we're just gonna do we're doing rapid fire here.
Okay.
All right. So Hunyuan 3D. This is from Tencent. They have an open source, production ready 3D generative model. So we talked video models and image models. This one is kind of cool because you can basically, some of this, if you watch this video, you could like take a picture of something and then turn it into a 3D model and apply different.
The results speak for themselves. In double-blind user tests,
so you can kind of see like
that's it.
Perfect for small teams, individual developers, and creators. You can start with a single image, a photograph, or even AI generation, and produce a high-fidelity PBR textured 3D model in just minutes. Future updates will include text to 3D, multi-view input, and more.
So, anyways, thought that was pretty cool.
Dude, those dudes from Adam should try it out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
shit.
Yeah, just the idea to like turn something into a 3D model in the video, and I think this is the coolest use case for me, is like I've done some game development in the past, and I used Unity, but getting good 3D models is like, are you playing with it?
I just did one thing and I already got this model, dude.
Dude.
That's pretty sick. Is this like Iron Man and
Captain America together is what it looks like. What'd you do?
I just like one of these and I said generate shape.
So take that image, okay, and then it generates into a 3D model.
Yeah, because I picked this one.
Dude. Yeah. Dude, so like I was saying, like I did some game development, like I enjoy playing. I'm not a big gamer anymore. I used to be when I was younger, but I enjoy like building games almost more than I enjoy playing games. So I will still like build some games here and there just for the heck of it.
This one.
But getting 3D models for Unity was especially ones that you could actually were usable,
Yeah.
you basically had to go to like an asset store, and you could never like get an entire game. You're like piecing together different assets, and then wasn't a cohesive story. So the idea that we're getting to the point where we're maybe not there yet, but you can generate 3D characters and turn them into like wire up them so they're actually like the skeletons are right and the movement is right, and put them in games. That's going to be pretty cool. And I don't think we're there yet, but at some point it's going to
Totally.
it's going to get to the point where me as like a average or below average game developer can probably build something pretty cool.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, you can export these different types of extensions. I know GLB is using like 3JS and stuff, and you definitely can't print this one, but I'm sure there's probably like an export for that. Dude, that's the coolest thing. I want to 3D print shit.
Yeah, we need a master 3D printer.
Dude, I'm down to buy one actually. We want to 3D print like, I don't know, just anything. I have a subscription to Atom, which is like our YC homies company. And my friend uses my account because he has like 3D printers, and he just freaking prints stuff all day. So,
all right, what's the business case for why we need a 3D printer?
Fuck, dude, I don't know.
Chat, help us out. We need a real business case.
Coffee mugs for everyone.
Yeah,
an appreciation.
Yeah, we need a business case for a 3D printer so we can have some fun and play around with this stuff.
Yeah. Research and development.
Darren said, a while back, a couple minutes ago, if only we had a framework that could do workflows and evals. We have that.
Dude.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, continuing along with, it's kind of a packed news week this week. I mean, a lot of little stuff, right? Not any like big, I guess, completely life-changing things, but so many little things that are quality of life improvements on a lot of little model releases that I think could, depending on what you're doing, might be really beneficial. So here's another model release. So Mistral released a small model. This is like a 24 billion parameter model. I haven't seen how it compares, but from what I've seen with Mistral, it's always, they're not quite up to speed with all of the, the big players. They're just maybe slightly behind, but it's all open source. It's all available. And so they're kind of, trying to keep a really good open source story for all these different models. And as someone who's a big open source fan, I'm sure you all are as well. Like, I want to see good open source models. So it's always good to see when they have releases and how it compares.
But we have to mention that this is yet another small model, which you can think is also a trend that you should be seeing, because you can use small models to do smaller tasks and save bigger models for bigger tasks. It's going to become a trend, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned the Andre Karpathy talk, and he was talking about in the 60s and 70s when we were writing code, you had to, or when you were using computers, you basically had a small, thin client and you would talk to a mainframe, right? And that's what we're doing now, is like you have your computer and you're talking to some, remote API LLM, because we can't like that compute isn't going to work on our machine. So with these smaller models, plus with probably increased hardware, that you can run locally, at some point you might just be running these things on your own machine.
Yeah.
At least for some tasks. Maybe you still, send some stuff off, but when your coding agent, when you get good enough coding agents that can run locally, imagine how much cheaper and, ideally faster, because you don't, once it's fast enough. So.
Yeah. Then it becomes a very software 1.0 problem.
So other things that are useful for us to highlight, OpenAI has released an official podcast. So if that's your thing, like, they got an official podcast. It's on YouTube. You can check that out. I have not watched it, but it's always interesting when one of the big guys or girls or players are releasing podcasts, because they're probably going to say cool things. So Sam Altman was on there, talked about GPT-5 in the first episode. Another, this was like a cool release last week. if I can find it. Director.ai from the people at BrowserBase. That was released last week. So if you haven't seen that, you basically the goal is automate anything, right? And it uses browsers and other things. And it's just does it for you. So retrieve jobs, get PRs, order a Nintendo Switch.
We should ask Paul to come on one day.
Yeah. Paul, where are you at? You should come on. We should show, like, I don't know. Can you find that video? Because that was a pretty cool video, especially if anyone, their launch video. Any of you Severance fans out there.
That was a good video.
So it's a pretty cool video. Definitely kudos to the team for the launch. And I will say the thing that I like about BrowserBase is they kind of started and they even some of their visualizations, they have like building blocks of how their products build on top of each other. So they have, like BrowserBase, which is like the I guess the browser infrastructure. Then they have Stagehand, which is like the framework. And then now they have Director, which is like a consumer tool built on top of it. It's really sick. I do think, I don't know how to copy this. I can't copy that.
Here, let me.
Yeah, you want to share it?
Sure.
I do think it's going to be interesting how
you'll be presenting.
We'll watch this. Go ahead. Let's watch.
To management tomorrow. If you can't make that happen, I think you know what's next.
Get out of here.
Hey, it's fixed right there.
Hey, man. How's that presentation coming together?
I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. Based on these opportunities in the market, I think this is a great direction for us to take the company. Not only because it's where the industry is headed, but also because it puts us in the best possible position to lead.
Weren't we about to fire this guy last week? This is impressive.
They gotta have that long-term game.
Man, this director thing's pretty crazy.
Tell me about it.
Very well done.
Yeah, that's a sick video.
Yes, video.
Yeah, and they had a lot of cameos in there. Like, I think, so you said Swix was in there. I think was maybe Theo and Jason Liu. I mean, there's a whole bunch of like little cameos they snuck in there, which is good because I'm sure those people promoted it, right? If they're in the video.
Yeah.
So really well done video. The launch, I mean, went. I'd be surprised if you're watching this if you didn't hear about it because it went so well. I was very well talked about. I think the challenge, and they probably know this, is they have a consumer product and they also have product that's sold to developers. So they're now pitching two different people, but they have different websites and different, completely different URLs. So I think it's a really cool.
They got money.
Yeah, they got money. It's really cool. I'm excited to see where it goes. And yeah, Paul, if you're watching, come say hey.
Dude, you know what sucks? We didn't get to go to the party. We got invited to the party and then go.
I know. I felt like I was speaking at the meetup, right? And so we're like, well, I already committed to this meetup, but yeah, we could have went to the party. Could have had a good time.
Totally forgot about the party.
I would have been way underdressed,
Oh, dude, for sure. That would have been so funny.
Yeah, I would have showed up with my Mostra t-shirt and they would have kicked me out.
Yeah, dude, that thing looked like a shindig, We had to come correct for that.
Yeah, that was the thing. You had to. I would have had to buy some new clothes.
Yeah. Oh man, we just have founders clothes. We don't have fucking nice ass stuff.
Yeah.
BrowserBase has some swag.
Yeah, they got swag for sure.
They got swag. We need some swag too. We get some swag.
Yeah, we will get there. We gotta get those 3D printers first.
Yeah, we need 3D printers first. so we can 3D print a bunch of cool shit. We'll be the guys who wear bling.
First we get the 3D printers, then we get the swag.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Anything else you want to talk about? That's all I had for today. We've been going an hour 40.
No, I'm good. This was fun as always.
Yeah. All right, everyone. If you're just tuning in, we're about to wrap up.
Yeah.
I'm Shane. This is Abi. We're two of the co-founders of Mastra. We do this every week. We bring on guests. We talk some AI news. We talk about some of the things we're seeing as we talk to our customers that are building AI applications, AI agents. If you know of someone that we should be talking to, let them know, have them reach out, or you reach out for them. We're always looking for more cool guests to come on and talk about some of the things they're building in the AI space. So let us know.
We have a show on Fridays too called Mastra CutzAI from Daniel and Tyler. So that's like a pair programming live stream.
Yeah.
Check that out on Fridays.
Yeah, they do a little bit more. If you want to actually see how we work, see how we write code, Tyler and Daniel do a lot more of the actual hands-on coding than we're doing in this show. They do talk a little news, and so that's Mastra CutzAI. So that's on Friday, and we're eventually at some point we're going to bring along an EU version. We got some of our team members in EU that will be doing something. So Marvin and Ward, I don't know if you know this yet, but you're the dudes.
They're chosen.
You got to do it. You're the chosen.
Mastra Eurovision.
Yeah, you get her done. Tyler says, "Thanks for tuning in, Tyler." So make sure if you are not already, go find Abi on X. Give him a follow.
Thank you.
Go follow me on X. Check out all the Mastra stuff. We got the book. Check out the course we just released. Yeah, we got all kinds of stuff. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Let us know how we can get better, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
See ya.